review. So Armin, be ready to be on the screen the entire time. I hope that's okay. You have no choice now. You can always turn off your video if you need to. But yeah, once again, just thanks so much for being here, everybody. We're so excited to have you in and looking forward to this session. Woo! This is the most excited group of people we've had. It's a good. We're soaking up your energy.
Okay.
All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to A Time of Opportunity, the Future of Work. We are joined by a panel of 5 experts today who will be introduced shortly. But to start, I'd just like to extend a special thank you to Alice Isaac in the Experiential Learning Office, Concordia University, for moderating, participating, and bringing together today's panel. Thanks, Alice. We are streaming this event via Montreal Connect online and coming to you live from Concordia University's Space, which is located on unceded Indigenous lands in downtown Tiohtià:ke, Montreal. At Space, we facilitate daily activities that allow for knowledge sharing by focusing on what Concordia community members are working on in terms of research initiatives and course activities. Given the webinar structure of this event, I'll remind you to please go ahead and use the Q&A box if you have a question to pose. You're also more than welcome to raise a virtual hand and we can unmute you so that our panelists can hear you. We are streaming to YouTube and Montreal Connect, as I mentioned. So those of you joining us through those platforms, feel free to participate via text. I'll be on there monitoring the text and relaying any of your questions or comments to our moderator here. So on that note, my excuses, it's my pleasure to pass it over to you, Alice. Welcome in.
Hi there, can you hear me? Okay, great. So thanks everyone for being here today, and to our viewers on the internet, thank you too. I'm Alice Isaac. I'm the Experiential Learning Lead in the Provost Office, and I'm joined here today by my esteemed colleagues who you'll get to meet in a moment. So today we're looking at the future of work, and more specifically, we're going to be talking about how we're preparing students to enter the workforce, how universities are responding to changes in the labor market, and finally, how can we help industry renew its commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion, EDI, as we say. So I'll just start by inviting my fellow panelists to introduce themselves and tell us a bit about the work that they do at Concordia. I might pull in Armand, who is joining us virtually to start.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure to be here. So my name is Armand Sadruddin. I'm an assistant professor in the Supply Chain and Business Technology Management Department at John Molson School of Business, Concordia University. And I'm here today to talk about my on the research side, like what do we see in the future of work? Specifically in my research, I'm looking at digital innovation and digital entrepreneurship. So maybe those could be some topics that we can discuss further during the presentation. Thank you.
Thanks. So anyone else who wants to go next?
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Baptist Brown. I'm the manager for the Institute for Cooperative Education at Concordia. And so our institute has a flagship co-op model, which some people know of. It's a 3-internship model, but we also have other opportunities available to students. So 1 internship model, a model that's focused on accelerating students' career path through 12 to 16-month internships, as well as, to Alice's mention about EDI, we're thinking about the future of our students and then the people they'll become in the world as they enter their careers. So we have a women in engineering program that we kind of augment the internship experience with mentorship experience as well. So that's maybe a snapshot of what I do and what the Institute for Cooperative Education does at Concordia.
Hi, everybody. Thank you very much for this invitation to discuss with you. I'm delighted to be with you this afternoon. My name is Isabel Danigun. I am Associate Vice President for Concordia Lifelong. My mission here is to lead the continuous adaptation of Concordia Lifelong Learning offerings, so we stay relevant, responsive, welcoming diversity and including everyone's histories and backgrounds, goals, dreams, objectives, and hopes. We are being innovative, community-centered, constructive, and agile, working with all stakeholders from the ecosystem to face together our very challenging era of changes with solidarity and empathy.
Wow, that was beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you to you.
Hi, I'm Meiji Hum, Director of Career Management Services and Corporate Partnerships at Concordia University's John Wilson School of Business. And in our unit, we support John Wilson students in their early career development journey. And so learning how to build their application documents, interview skills, networking skills, and creating opportunities for them to connect with employers as they're searching for non-academic internships or for full-time employment post-graduation. And another facet of our work is business development and building partnerships with employers in industry so that they remember John Wilson as a talent destination and for students to learn more about employment opportunities locally, nationally, and internationally. Thanks.
Brilliant. Thanks, Meiji. I'm so glad to have all of you here with me today. I think these are the right people to talk about the future of work, and we're well positioned to kind of bring in our expertise. So I think what I want to talk a bit about right now is experiential learning and what that means so that we all can kind of have a shared understanding. It's been kind of a buzzword, I guess, over the last few years, but it's not something new. Oh, hey, there's Graham Carr, the president of Concordia, just walking by. Isn't that lovely in the space, how you can just kind of see everyone? And so, yeah, experiential learning, it's been a buzzword recently, but it's certainly not new. It's something that we've been doing for a really long time, right? And what it is learning by doing, to put it simply. If you think about internships, that's the most common form of experiential learning that we know, and many of us have participated in internships. Personally, I have. But if we also look at students who are taking on leadership roles in student associations, if we're thinking about field schools that take international trips where students can do some real hands-on learning in communities around the world, even classroom activities that integrate industry projects where an industry partner comes in and they say, oh, I have this challenge that my organization is facing, or this problem that we need to solve. Or if they're looking at testing or prototyping an idea, they can do that in the classroom too. And so experiential learning is kind of having this lovely epiphany and exploding across campuses all over, which is really lovely. And that's why my office was created about 3 years ago now. And what we do is we support the experiential learning activities across the university while also creating new ones for students, which is really lovely. And so something that we've been doing recently has been the Beat the Odds internship program, which we launched, we piloted about a year ago, and we received a generous donation from RBC, $1 million, which was just announced a few days ago. And this is really an internship program for students in equity-seeking groups. And I'll kind of tie that back in a bit later in this discussion when we talk about EDI. But really what I want to say is that our goal as an institution is to ensure that every student graduates with experiential learning by 2025, which is a big goal for us. 2025 is kind of around the corner. And we're a large institution. We're like 50,000 students. So it's a big goal for us. We're really excited to get that, for that to happen. And I'm really glad to have your support, the folks around the table and others at the university to get us there. So now that we kind of have this shared understanding of experiential learning and you learned a bit about our panelists here today, I want to start talking about this last year and a half. I've been reflecting on it recently quite a bit. And one thing that really comes to mind is just this acceleration of social and economic trends in the labor market. And I'm wondering if we can just kind of kick off this topic with a question for the audience, which is, what would you say to new grads who may be feeling self-conscious and unsure of themselves as they enter the job market in this unprecedented time? Let that stew a little. You can drop that comment into the chat. We will also have a Q&A period at the end of towards the end of the discussion here today, but start thinking about that. What would you say to those students? So if I pass it over to Arman, would you be able to give us some context about the last year and a half and how we're kind of redefining the concepts and boundaries of work?
Exactly. Thank you so much for asking this question. So actually, I want to start it from the fact that, yeah, we can kind of see the world as pre-pandemic, post-pandemic. So maybe some of these structures and definitions and boundaries that we had in the pre-pandemic world was completely different, specifically in the context of organizations and the way we are working these days. So since few years ago, we were all familiar with the concept of fusion. So the fact that the technology was playing a huge role in the organizations, but sometimes we may see the technology just as a separate department, like the IT department, as an enabler. But nowadays we can see the technology is fused with all the activities that we do in the organization. So that is an important point. And that's just imagine during the pandemic, we lost those face-to-face interactions, in-person interactions. And now like the websites, the social media, the e-commerce, so all these technologies, platforms are playing a huge role in the activities of the businesses and organizations. So we can clearly see that there is a change. So as a result of this change, we can see that there is a change in the required skill sets that the industry, the organizations are looking for, because now the technology is very important in this regard. So that's why I want to emphasize on the point that the skill sets are changing. And actually, I guess this would be part of our discussion today, that we want to talk about what are the new people in the market are looking for, if as a student you want to start your education, maybe where you can focus on. So I can talk about for example, the programs that at Concordia we are now defining, revising in order to attract more students and show them that these are the new skill sets that they have to continue and work on. But in particular, I want to focus on an article which was published by Gartner, which many people in the IT sector, they are familiar with this institution. And they were focusing on some of these concepts, redefining the concepts, redefining the boundaries of the work. So we are all familiar with this concept of 9-to-5 work, that we were going to job from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Now, because of the pandemic, we can see there is a clear shift in that culture. So basically now, and this is going to impact the health of the employees. It's going to impact their productivity as well. So the counter argument that we can see in this regard is that nowadays people are more than before in front of their computers. So we are all familiar with topics such as Zoom fatigue. So now it can impact their health in this regard and performance. But on the other side, now you are more flexible. So it's not necessarily from 9 to 5 that people can work. So we can see this is one of those moments that in terms of when, where, and how the works and the boundaries are changing. So in terms of when, maybe this 9 to 5 is one of those big changes. In terms of the where, maybe we can see that we used to talk about office spaces a lot. So all the activities that we were designing, they were based on a specific location. Now we can see that those days are gone, and now everything is remote, and we are all familiar with those type of virtual meetings and virtual activities. So this is another change that we can see. Yeah, there was a time that we had to go to our offices because maybe they had computers, they had internet, but with the advancement of the technology, now we can see those days might be different now. But I mean, still in terms of privacy and security, definitely it's an important issue, like where, I mean, working from home. So from the privacy and security aspects, we need to consider so many things, but there are specific tasks. There are specific tasks that might be redefined, talking about the concept of office and redefining that concept. And finally, in terms of how, so we used to have so many meetings in offices, like it was in-person meetings, like it was a couple of hours each of those meetings. Now we can see those days are gone. Like we may have virtual meetings, or now we have so many technologies that whenever you have a question, you can send that question like through these instant messaging tools, and then you can receive the answer. So maybe some of those old ways of communicating, collaboration, interactions are now completely changing, and now the organizations are thinking about this. So maybe now it's a new era. So in terms of redefining all these boundaries that they can define in different organizations.
Thanks, Arman. And I think I was muted there. Thanks, Arman. And isn't it wonderful that you're joining us virtually? I mean, that just fits in so perfectly, huh?
Exactly, exactly.
Great. So Sarah, in the Institute for Cooperative Education, I think this last year, there's been a bit of a challenge around preparing students for remote work. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, that's been one of the challenges, yes. So I mean, Arman, you know, he talked about the pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, and you know, how are things shifting? You know, for us, given the way that the Institute is structured, it was the pandemic, right? We're not quite at post-pandemic yet, right? So for us, when the pandemic hit, you know, that's actually, maybe let me back up, give you a little bit of context. Because with the Institute, students, their internships are integrated into their degree. That means that when they're on an internship, that is their full-time vocation during an entire semester. So during that semester, they're not taking classes, they're on an internship. These are usually secured the semester prior to the internship starting. So March, you know, we're in the winter semester for us at Concordia. That means that our students have largely secured their summer internship already. Of course, what happened in March 2020 was employers realized we're not going to be able to welcome these students virtually, because most of our employers never did that before. It's not even a model that we had envisioned prior to the pandemic. And then some just couldn't welcome the students at all. So we actually had a large number of students, more than half of our students who had already secured internships, thought they knew what they were doing with their summer, had their internships canceled, right? Understandably, right? And so we had a lot of very quick learning to do, a lot of quick pivoting to do. That was the word of 2020, I think, was to pivot. So we certainly had to do that. And not only work with our students about how to adapt to this new reality where everything is virtual, but actually really work with the employers. Oftentimes they would turn to us and we're like, well, we're trying to figure it out too, actually. So it was a lot of working together, of coming together to say, okay, we know that we have this commitment to our students. It's part of their academic requirements. So it's not a, well, too bad, do it next year. You have to do it now. So how do we work together with our employer partners, with our students, kind of teaching them patience, teaching ourselves patience and understanding to figure out what we can do. And so we really did pivot, you know, that's the best word. We found new opportunities, oftentimes with new employers that we had never, you know, thought of before, never considered as hiring interns. In some ways it's easier with the new employers because they don't have anything to base themselves on, right? Whereas the existing employer base, you know, had their idea of what an internship looks like. The student comes to our space, they work, you know, 30 to 7 to 40 hours a week, and that's it. So it was a lot of just listening. I think that's piece number one, was listening to our students, hearing where they're at. Because, we're talking about the future of work, but who works? It's people, right? So it's a lot of just kind of reconnecting with the fact that, okay, you're in a moment where you're dealing with a pandemic, and whatever that means for you in your life as a student, as a young person, as a member of a family, and how do we keep that piece in mind and keep that, front of focus, but then still try to get you that career experience to kind of help you on your path. I think I've deviated from your initial question.
No, that was great.
But yeah, it was we have about 4,000 students that are part of the Institute, and across all faculties. And so it was a lot of just figuring it out as we go. And I'm going to be honest, we're still doing that now. We've had a lot of success. I started this answer off with how much of a challenge it was, but actually it's turned into a huge success for us. By the time the fall came around again, so in the summer, the students started working. We had to find those students internships. The fall rolls around, that's a new cohort of students that are also looking for their internships. And what we realized after going through that very difficult initial, let's say 6 months or so, was that we had a stronger relationship with our partners. It's less transactional. It can get quite transactional. Okay, post your position, student applies, student interviews, they get the job, great. It became much more of a partnership, a true partnership, actually. And so that's been, a lesson, I think, for all of us in our office, but also for all of our partners and for our students. We've been able to be much more open with our students as well. Let them behind the scenes of how we put this together for them and with them. We've seen students also step up to the challenge. I certainly have these moments. I'm sure all of you do. It's wonderful working at a university. You have these moments where you look at these, young people, sometimes not so young people, but generally young people, and you go, oh my God, wow, we're going to be okay in the world. Actually, I think it's a remarkable space to be a part of and to see and to witness. And to have my hope renewed, every few days when we see what's possible and what they're willing to do for their own future and for all of our futures, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. And Isabel, I think that in the last time we had a discussion about the pandemic and how that has kind of forced us to pivot a little and adapt and learn. You talked a bit about adaptability and how this is a really great opportunity for skills development. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yes, thank you to remind me of that. It's exactly what came to my mind listening to Sarah and Armin also. It's very much about openness, I think, attentiveness to each other, and I'd like to see dancing together with the rhythm of the time. And for me, it's so full of opportunity to go further and with more agility. So my takeaway from the conversation, many conversation, and what happened in the last 19 months is very much around adaptability. I will say empathy, but I will explain is staying open and generous to each other, and understanding is that by working together, we'll find this thing that we don't know about yet because we haven't been there yet. And that is some days felt and perceived as a challenge and a catastrophe sometimes. But most of the time, I think we can look at it as an amazing opportunity to grow, be stronger. And by developing, I'm getting to the skills point, by developing this flexibility, adaptability, I think we built our strength also. And what I would like to say to young graduates, but also everyone, not only our traditional students that are more or less young, but also people who never got the opportunity yet to come to us. In my mandate, I have to develop this capacity to bring our university accessible to all. And with all those challenges we're facing, there's a feeling of trust in yourself. All backgrounds and history and goals and objectives are great and can work together. So in terms of skills development, we develop more and more what we call and we define as employability skills that are not only related to a specific discipline, but also how to work together, how to think together, how to stay relevant. And those employability skills are defined also as transferable to all kinds of contexts, even from one domain of the human activity to another one. So what we want to develop, at least at the lifelong learning strategic team, is this capacity to welcome everyone, to listen to the stories and challenges and grow and partner, as Sarah would say. It's not a transaction. It's part of our journey together, and being so enriched by the diversity and inclusiveness that we're developing. So it's challenging, but quite exciting, I think.
Absolutely. I agree with you on that. So if we want to unpack the current context a little more, Meiji, I'm wondering, could you tell us a bit about the relevance of traditional teaching methods and how that informs some of the work that you do?
Right. So I think as a next gen university, we need to be mindful that, certain teaching methodologies, yes, are at the core of like the university learning experience, but we need to remain open-minded to see what is going to be relevant in industry and to ensure that our students' skill sets remain versatile. So I was just thinking about Isabel's terminology of like the relevance and making it transferable. They need to be versatile as well. And so like at John Molson, for instance, the case competition culture is very strong. And so for those who are unfamiliar with that term, a case competition or business case competition is sort of like a cerebral Olympics where you have a problem to solve and you're just given a certain data set or information and tools to solve this problem, and you need to come up with recommendations which will be assessed and evaluated by judges, and they are normally people from industry or professionals or whatnot. And I think that opportunity, to link back to our initial discussion about experiential learning, makes that learning all the more richer and has a stronger impact on the students' learning, instead of making it very passive or just lecture style, and interactive for students to bring ideas that may not necessarily have been brought forth if it was in a very traditional lecture type of learning experience.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's definitely the point of experiential learning, right? It's an opportunity for students to get this practical hands-on experience. They're developing these transferable skills. They're gaining real industry experience as well. There's this wild thing that's happening these days where you look at an entry-level job and sometimes it says 1 year of experience as a requirement, or 2 or 3 years of experience as a requirement, which is wild, right? These entry-level jobs were really made for new grads, right? Folks who are coming out of university with fresh ideas and fresh minds, and it's an opportunity for them to really learn and grow and become professionals, right? It's that bridge. And that's not really the case anymore. And so as an institution, and not only Concordia, but universities, post-secondary institutions, we're stepping up to say, okay, experiential learning is going to be the way that we give our students a leg up. Give them an experience that they can put on their CVs and say, oh, I can apply to an entry-level position. Give them the confidence to say, you know what, my experience as the president of this student association is relevant to this job, right? My experience in a case competition, as you mentioned, is relevant to this position, right? I have something to offer. It may not be 3 years of professional experience in a similar role, but it's absolutely transferable, right? And so that's what we're all here to do, right? Prepare our students for the future, their futures, the future of work, and how that's changing, right? And so if we look more closely at experiential learning, and I'm really glad, Meiji, that you talked about, these untraditional models of learning. If we look at it as a cycle where we kind of start with the activity, we do some reflection, we think about what we've learned, we start thinking about how to incorporate that learning into the things that we're going to do in the future. And then we kind of experiment and do those things again. It's this learning model that's cyclical, right? And there's a lot of ways that experiential learning creates other learning cycles in the university. I think the Institute of Cooperative Education is a really great practical example of how that happens.
Yeah. So so many things, so many little nuggets popping up. So yeah, absolutely. I think so. Our model is cyclical to start with. The co-op, the flagship co-op model, which is a 3 internship model, is laid out so that students come into the university. They typically do about a year or so of coursework so that they have some knowledge to kind of take with them. Then they do their first internship, and then they alternate from then on between internships and study semesters. So the idea is, obviously, yes, you're taking learnings from the classroom and you're bringing that into the workplace. That's the obvious model. But what we see and what we hear actually from professors at Concordia is that the students who partake in, whether it's co-op, other kinds of internships, or other forms of experiential learning, is that they see the difference. Those students will speak up in a different way. They're able to speak to the lessons that are happening in the classroom from experience. And I think we know, oftentimes students maybe believe their fellow students more than they'll believe, somebody in a position of authority, quote unquote, right? And so hearing it from your professor, and then also hearing a fellow student say, actually, yeah, I was on an internship, or I was in the workplace, and actually I saw this. I saw how we implemented this exact lesson. So that gives confidence for these students who are coming into the classroom, ostensibly to learn something new. They're entering that class, but they've already got that experience, that lived experience, and they bring it back to their professors, to their fellow students. And so it absolutely creates additional opportunities for learning for the students, but also for, professors, right? We are an ivory tower of sorts. And so there are professors who have, been in the institution primarily for a number of years. And so it also helps to kind of refresh their knowledge and what's actually happening on the ground right now by hearing the more current examples that students are able to bring in. So it's learning for the students, obviously, but it's also learning for us as an institution. We're able to take these lessons and say, okay, how do we adapt? We certainly hear it quite a bit from employers, the pieces that they tell us are missing, or that they would like to see students graduating with. So that benefits obviously our student base at the Institute, but the entire student base at Concordia, because if we're able to heed those lessons that we're hearing coming from the market and say, how do we respond? How do we adapt? I think it's beneficial for everybody, actually. Yeah.
Absolutely. And Isabel, you've talked to me a bit about lifelong learning cycles for everyone, right? Not just Concordia students.
Yes. Well, it's great internships, work-related, work integrated learning opportunities while students are at the university. But after they graduate, this looping schema, coming back to university, doing experience, coming back, brought us to this reflection that every time those cycles are coming back, we should be able as an institution to validate the competencies that has been developed and also certify them. Because historically, universities validate competencies for admission purposes or for equivalence of courses. But the experience hasn't been certified for what it is yet. So we've developed models and processes and tools to validate those experiential learning skills that has been developed and competencies, so we can recognize and acknowledge officially the competencies and bring those people to their next phase. and cycling all their life, welcoming them with all their backgrounds. Of course, not only Concordia students, but many, many people who have developed amazing skills and competencies, absolutely pertinent, without having being a student, a university student. And it doesn't matter. It just enriches us, and we can, like I said, enrich each other's. And I think breaking those silos of educated in the classical meaning of it, and people who have learned in all kinds of ways. An example that I like to give is that, you know, there's all sorts of ways to get up in the mountain to ski. Some people take the chairlift, some others the whatever way, and some take their skis on their back and they go up the hill. And at the end of the day, they all on the top of the mountain. Anyway, they just came with a different path. The richness at the university, but most interestingly, I think in our workplace, is this diversity of experience. Imagine the power of a team that works well together, coming from all kinds of educational, but learning pathways. All kinds of brains, all kinds of ways to learn, all kinds of histories of backgrounds. If we are able more and more to acknowledge, recognize, certify, we're helping people, we're helping each other's. And I guess we have a greater impact on this, what we hear, workforce shortage. Maybe we're not looking wide enough to the richness that is already there. And I think recognizing, certifying all those different paths and accumulation of competencies, skills, and knowledge will help us develop even more responsive and specific trainings to, you know, loops are loops and life is life, and we don't know where it's going to end. So it brings more adaptability to our university to watch what's around and say, oh my God, there's all this. So it's a big, a land that is rich, where we can all grow. Je vais arrêter là parce que je pourrais en parler pendant longtemps. I'm sorry I speak French and English, but I think there might be some francophones in the audience. I think it's scary, of course, but it's so exciting also. What's in front of us, it will be everything but boring. And if we get more comfortable in those changes and adapt and be some kind of yogis in all parts of our life, I think our life will be better and to more people either. So I think it's a difficult time, challenging, but great.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Did I answer your question?
Oh, yes. That and more, which is what we're here for today. So thank you.
Yeah, je veux rebondir sur ce que tu as dit. En fait, you know, I think it's really amazing that we are at Concordia. I want to like just recognize the fact that it's Concordia. I think, yes, we are an institution of higher education, and that means something in terms of competencies, but maybe also rigidity. But I think we have an incredible opportunity at Concordia. You know, I'm sure these conversations are happening elsewhere. I'm sure we're not the only ones, but I think this conversation isn't maybe happening everywhere. I think, you know, Concordia's history, you know, so I was a student at Concordia. Alice, you mentioned that you did internships. I was once upon a time a co-op student. You know, I am on the other side of it now, but, you know, there's a reason why students come to Concordia. It's when I was a student, the motto was real education for the real world, you know, and I still kind of cling to that motto. I know we don't use it anymore, but I really, it meant something to me, you know, meant something to me as a young person looking at what university I wanted to go to. It meant something to me being a student here. it has meant something to me being an alumni for years, and still kind of keeping my ear to the ground about what's happening at Concordia. And it certainly means something to me now working at Concordia. You know, there's a reason why we work here, I think, probably. There's a reason why students come here. And I think it's because we have this opportunity to pivot, to develop new competency tools, to invite back the people who maybe who were, I like the way you said it, who were not Concordia students yet. I like that, right? So that's an invitation to, I think, all of Montreal, maybe all of Quebec, maybe all of the world, you know.
All the world. Join us.
Yeah. But I think it's a great opportunity that we have here at this institution to be able to kind of push the boundaries, to say, you know, we want to think about education in a different way. And, you know, the lifelong learning, it's not just about education, but it's about learning. How do we grow? How do we continue to grow as people, as professionals? So, yeah.
If I can add, yeah. So yeah, if I can add, so I really like just to add to this topic. So I guess there are some great initiatives by Concordia that I can mention. One of them is the innovation lab. Like this is at Concordia we have it, so it's great. Like students are going to create this prototype, but at the same time now we are seeing that the fact that some of these activities are multidisciplinary. So not only the engineers are involved, so you need people from social science, from business, so from different aspects, people are getting together in order to create. And then if we are thinking about commercializing the idea, so again, we have some other opportunities, like the District 3 Innovation Center could be the example. So now you are moving one step further now. Okay, so we are talking about the innovation. Now let's commercialize it. And then regarding the topic that we were talking about, looping and bringing back those people who educated, who recently graduated, now they went to the industry, now they can bring back their experience. Yes, so like the invited speakers would be an example that we are implementing in classroom. For example, as part of the CoM 226 in business technology management course that I'm teaching, I'm trying to bring some of our recent graduates who graduated, now they went in the industry, they work, and then I can see a clear fit between what I'm going to cover on that session with what they experience as part of their work experience. So, and the other fact is, yes, before the pandemic, maybe there were so many challenges in terms of like accommodation, logistical challenges, but now everything is through Zoom. So you are inviting that person, she or he could be from any company in any place in the world, but now you can easily like invite them to your class, and you can have a half a minute or like half an hour conversation with him or her, and that would be a great addition to what we are offering in our classrooms.
Well said, well said. Something else I wanted to mention was we recently partnered with BHER, the Business and Higher Education Roundtable, to offer student challenges. So it'll be kind of like a case competition, and it's multidisciplinary. So if there are any students who are listening, tuning in there, the applications are still open. And this is a really great opportunity to work on real industry projects. It's an 8-week challenge. You'll have an opportunity to be coached by a former Concordia graduate who's, you know, got a wealth of experience and interested in developing their own skills as a leader and their own leadership style as well. So it'll be a learning opportunity for them as they guide you through that experience. So it's called the Canada Comeback Challenge, C3 for short. And basically what BHER is doing is they're taking all of these organizations and helping them kind of come back from COVID and the challenges that we've all been kind of facing over the last year and a half. So this is a really great opportunity to get involved socially, helping, you know, your fellow local organizations get back on their feet, or at least innovate and think about the future of their services or the products that they offer. So students, get in touch with the Experiential Learning Office. You'll find us online for more information in the application. So something that I kind of wanted to bring us back around to now is skills development. We've talked a lot about transferable skills and the myriad ways that we can do that. And I think, Meiji, you work really closely with industry, right? And so I'm wondering if you've kind of got a sense of what their needs are right now, and what they've kind of been saying around what they're looking for in students, and in terms of their hiring practices and that sort of thing, and how that informs your work and your connections to the John Molson School of Business.
Sure. So our conversations with industry are critical so that we can ensure students' learnings and experiences and skill acquisition opportunities are fresh and relevant and just pertinent to industry needs. Things are just moving so quickly and changing at such a rapid pace. Sometimes, the traditional student learning experience, may have some gaps, and that's where we suggest students take advantage of other learning opportunities, whether it's like Udemy for Concordia students or supplemental workshops that sometimes our unit will provide, like a third-party provider to enhance that learning experience so that students have the skills to make them stand out as a job applicant. But yes, our conversations either with Finance Montréal, for instance, or the Chamber of Commerce, or different professional associations or designations really help so that we have our ear to the ground and we can bring that information to students so that they're aware of what's on the horizon, but also to the faculty. So when they're structuring the curriculum, they can incorporate certain things that, they may have missed, or just update and refresh some of the programming so that the student learning experience is as rich and as valuable as possible upon graduation.
And Sarah, in the Institute for Cooperative Education, you all are always thinking about skills development, and I think you had a recent request from a partner around a certain software, or could you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, it's a lot of what Meiji just said, actually. So it's listening, right? It's listening to the employers as they say, it'd be really great if we have this skill. So what you're talking about is we had one of our partners come to us and say, we're really missing this skill set. We're missing it in the students, right? That's the first way it was presented to us. We're missing it in the students. And so what we typically do is we say, great, okay, thanks for identifying that. To be responsive, we often like to invite our employers in, right? To say, if you have a certain software that you work with, or if you have a certain type of way of working that you think will be beneficial for students to have, come in, right? Come in and do a workshop with our students. Whether those students will work for you or not, right, immediately or maybe later, it's still a benefit to the student. So we often like to do that. We like to invite them in and do this workshop. So we tried that this time with the employer, and the response was, we would love to, but the issue is we don't have that skill in-house. We're looking to get it from your students, right? So employers are coming to us, yes, for interns, right? That we typically think of interns as coming in to kind of help out, but actually employers are looking for these students to come in and really bring new skills into their organizations. And so we're in the process of figuring that one out. Where can we go get the skill set so that our students can come with value add, frankly, to these employers with something that they don't even have internally. So it's a true contribution that the students are able to make, so much that they're specifically asking for it, and we're having to act quickly.
Yeah, this week I was reading an article just published, I think on Monday or Tuesday, in Harvard Business Review around the language that we use to talk about upskilling, right? It's always this gap in our skills. And with folks who are currently professionals, we're not talking about students here, there's this fear surrounding that gap in our skill set, right? And this fear of losing our jobs or falling behind because of changing technology and that sort of thing. So there's kind of this push towards upskilling, right? And unsurprisingly, fear doesn't really motivate us too much, right? It's this fear that can sometimes paralyze us when it comes to finding innovative ways of doing things that we've done for years, or learning a new skill that's going to, really push us over the edge in terms of what we can do and how we perform. And so what this article had said was, rather than focusing on fear and trying to push people towards developing these new skills, that we should focus on developing like an exploratory mindset. And for me, what that means is developing a sense of curiosity, right? being curious about the world and the things that you do and the people that you meet, and having that inform your work, right? And so I really find that much more motivating to kind of think about the future and being curious rather than, this fear of being left behind. But it does make me think about a lot of the work that you do in lifelong learning, Isabel, around upskilling and developing skill sets. And you also have this pilot project around validating skills that you can tell us about too. So please.
Yes, I have so many things to say. Just from what you just said, of course, the future has tremendous, exciting things to bring us. But let's never forget that our past has so much to bring to the future. So it's not, I agree with that word of a gap and like if we're missing a piece. No, it's like it's new skills are our future of development, and how you get that. And the reason why you get it is not because you're imperfect now, it's just because life change and we have to face the new seasons of our life all the time. So never acknowledging and valuing everybody's past is extremely important, not only for the self-esteem, but also to bring that to our society. The other thing around those skills that are looked for in the workplace, we hear that all the time. And what we have been piloting very much and with great interest, enthusiasm, and success is building the programs with the workplace. And so sit at the table like architects, everybody, the subject matter experts, of course, the researchers from the university, of course, the workplace, those employers who are looking for something that we need them to explain and develop. So the question is, what exactly are you looking for? Not finding it. And though this needs assessment makes the base of great program development. We also work with employability organizations. There are many specialized around needs for women, specific needs for women looking for employability opportunities, youth, indigenous people, Anglophones, Francophones, everybody we can find, and their understanding of all those vectors and needs and vision enables us to develop more pertinent programs, more responsive, and with a kind of agility that we need because ça va vite les changements. So, and at the end, I come again with to answer your question, recognizing the value of that, eventually certifying it. Not asking people to go back to carré numéro 1 puis recommencer. No, the workplace doesn't have that time. The people don't have that time. And more, I think we should think about, it's nice, the work integrated learning opportunities, internship. I'm a CoOp student from the 70s. Bon, 80 quand même. Mais it was great, but I think there's something to develop around working part-time, studying part-time, and this hybrid model, not only looping, but integrate all that. And we can see in different places in the world and even in the province, not 4 months, or not silos. I work, I study, I go back to work, and that's great, but integrate everything that would feed, as Sarah was mentioning, and you also, it feeds the university as well as it responds to the needs of our community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I just think it's interesting. You mentioned the silos, right? And Alice, you mentioned, the diversity of thought kind of thing, like students coming together. And I'm thinking back to what Armand was talking about earlier. You mentioned how different faculty, students from different faculties can come together oftentimes, whether it's in competition. So there's maybe Meiji, you know the name better than me, but there's a case competition that combines engineering students and JMSB students, so there are increasing ways, I think, that we are responding to our student base who are saying, yeah, I know I'm studying in this one program, but actually I'm interested in this other thing and this other thing. And from a traditional standpoint, we might say, well, those are not connected. Why are you interested in these two different things? But actually, I think we're learning, and I do think Concordia is doing a good job of responding to that and saying, actually, let's figure out how we can, bring together these two different spheres of thought or spheres of knowledge, and bring them together to create, students and graduates eventually that can respond to the world that isn't even here yet. You mentioned that earlier as well, Isabel, that oftentimes the students that we're graduating every year, they're not necessarily quite ready to respond to what the world needs from them. But I think we're getting there. At Concordia, we have new programs coming online every year, and sometimes I'm shocked, or I'll see. So I used to work much more closely with students, and I would have students studying finance and doing a minor in psychology, and I'm like, what? How did you put that together? Tell me more, right? Tell me why you want to do these two seemingly separate things. And we're starting to see that across faculties as well. So I think we're hopefully, having students who are better prepared to adapt. I think we started out the conversation talking about adaptability. So yeah, they're open, exactly. They're open and they're able to adapt because they have already their foot in different places, which I don't even think we were able to do that, when we were students.
It's amazing, just the degree of foresight that students have today and making those connections themselves. I'm working on a project that kind of looks at the diversity of the student body right now. And I've spoken to a few academic advisors and was also surprised to learn that students in fine arts often take courses at JMSB in marketing because they'll have to kind of be entrepreneurs and they'll have to kind of develop their brand and do that work once they've left, once they go out through our doors, right? So really lovely just in the way that they're able to make those connections. So something that I kind of want to talk about now is responding to the student body. And I think that this is really important to talk about equity and diversity and inclusion. It's something that we talk about often in the workforce, but as a post-secondary institution as well. I mean, over the last several years, we've seen students from all sorts of walks of life come through our doors and in increasing numbers, right? And it's a beautiful thing because when you have one indicator of a thriving society is really education, right? And so seeing more students from different groups coming through our doors is just a wonderful, wonderful thing in general. But the challenge that we have as an institution, and we're not unique in this, right? All sorts of industries are kind of taking a step back and looking at how they operate, the language that they use, the programming that they offer, the supports that they offer to the world and to the people that they're employing and to the students, at least in our case, the students that are applying to our institution. And so how we develop our programs is really key, not only in terms of welcoming students through our doors, but supporting them and giving them that experience, that university experience, right? Someone who is a first-generation student doesn't have the same support system as someone who comes from generations of Concordia grads or, ex-university grads. And so navigating the institution can be so challenging for that student, right? We have all of these great services and getting those students through our doors to say, come and do an internship. Come over here and build up your CV. Come and get some support around interview skills, right? Learn a new skill that maybe you won't necessarily pick up through your academic program. these are all things that we're doing, right? And just getting those students in the door is a win, right? In my book. And so if we're kind of looking at how we support those students in experiential learning, it's really, and looking forward towards the future of experiential learning, it's really kind of modifying these structures that we've built that can be kind of rigid in some cases, right? For someone who's a parent, someone who takes care of their parents or a family member, someone who works full-time and maybe studies part-time, it may not be the most, the smartest thing to quit your job that's giving you stable income to do an internship for a semester, right? And so the Beat the Odds internship program that we've developed recently, we've been piloting over the last year or so, and now through this generous donation from RBC, we can really scale up the program from 5 or 6 students that we were seeing to now 40 this year, which is amazing. And the students that we're seeing come through this program are really, it's really that student who doesn't have that time to devote to an extracurricular activity or a full internship. And so they come in and they do an internship, maybe 5 hours a week over 6 months. That really just blurs the boundaries between a semester. And it's really beautiful because they can fit it into their schedule, right? We see students come in through this program who often have low self-confidence, and just giving them this opportunity and saying, you can do this at your pace when you have the time, you can get that experience that you need that's relevant, that's related to your program of study, is just amazing. They come out of this program and they're like, wow, I didn't know that I could do this. I didn't know that my program was going to lead me in this direction. It's being able to do this career exploration. That's really lovely. Yes, go ahead.
You said something very interesting about using your skills, the skills you develop in your internship, eventually in your job. What is interesting also is to enable people to talk about their experience, their past, their history, in terms of transferable competencies and skills. So you've happened to learn something in such and such context, no judgment. How we learn doesn't really matter, is what we know, what we can do, and what kind of mindset we have. But being able to see how transferable from one context to another is great. So when we're supporting students, first trusting their self, but also demonstrate or support them to envision all kinds of ways to transfer and to talk about what they have done. For example, for those job description where you need a relevant experience. What does that mean? But helping a students of all age to talk about what they've done and how that all their learnings are pertinent for the next challenge they are offering their service for and their contribution for. So transferability, I think, of those development is interesting to explore.
Yeah, that's certainly something that we see a lot. I mean, we keep talking about these job descriptions and how, they look like they're for somebody who has 10 years of experience, but what they want to hire is that, student, not even graduate, that student. And so we see it all the time actually at the Institute, right? And oftentimes it's coaching the student of saying, okay, we know what the job description looks like. We've read it too. We know they're not expecting you to have all of these skills on day one. Frankly, you're probably not going to have all these skills I was going to say at the end of the 4 months, but sure, maybe ever.
No, because it's the need of the moment, but things change.
Exactly.
So what you have to demonstrate is your capacity to adapt.
Exactly. But there's also this side of reassuring the student, right? It's saying, you're not crazy, okay? We get it.
You're amazing.
Exactly. You are amazing. You come with experience, even if you've never had a job before in your life, right? Because students often think, so we run a learning program with students as they enter the Institute and before they start searching for their internships. So, we do everything we think we can do to prepare them, but still they get to that first job description and it's, ooh, right? And so it's about reassuring them and saying, you actually do come with lived experience and that means something and that's important. and it's how you communicate it, right? One of the things I say the most often to students is it's up to you to tell the employer how you're going to take your lived experience and translate that into what it is they're looking for. Exactly. It's not going to be 100% of what they think they want, because, you know, half the time they have a wish list, right? It's not, we want all these things. It's a wish list. Wouldn't it be great if, but it's about helping students see that they have a place in there and giving them the confidence to stand up and say, you know what, I think I'm going to be able to do this. Let me tell you why. You know, so it's a lot of working with students on that.
And maybe what else I could bring to your organization that you haven't even thought about yet.
Exactly. Yeah. I do want to touch on something you said before, Alice. You were talking about, you know, the diversity of Concordia. I think that's another really great advantage that we have being in Montreal overall, but being at Concordia in particular. We have a very diverse student base. I think more than most other universities, even in Montreal. You know, I think that's been true for all of our history, given our model, given, you know, our real world education kind of motto, right? I think we attract oftentimes people who are working already, but do want to get a traditional education. And so because of that diversity, we've seen that it's been an advantage actually to help employers see why they might actually want to have a student from Concordia who maybe isn't from here. And what does that mean in terms of their business operations, right? So, you know, it's always these really wonderful moments where you're having a conversation with an employer who is saying, you know, well, we're expanding to this country, or we do business in this other country, and we don't have anybody on staff who speaks the language. And we can say, well, you know, Concordia is very international, actually. You know, if you think about hiring one of our students as an intern, that's a whole new door that you've opened up for yourself that, you know, you were struggling with for a minute, and now we've got the solution for you. So there's a lot of opportunities, you know, just embracing the reality of our student base, and our faculty base as well, and our staff base. You know, I think we bring a lot to the Montreal community overall, I think.
Well said. Yeah. So I'm wondering if there are any questions from the audience. Someone did pop in with a comment to say, this is such a wonderful blend of information and inspiration. Thank you to all involved in making this event possible. Well, thank you too. The question that I had posed earlier when we started was for the audience. What would you say to new grads who may be feeling self-conscious and unsure of themselves as they enter the job market in this unprecedented time? So you can answer that question, audience members, if you'd like to. You could ask another question to our group of panelists here. Otherwise, would you like to answer that question? Isabel, you answered it a little earlier. Armand, would you like to answer that question? What would you say to some new grads who are entering the job market at this time?
So actually, what I want to say is kind of also related to the last topic that we were talking, but I guess you mentioned this in a way that you can do this at your own pace. So I guess that's the main point here. So in a research that I was involved with, so I was trying to look at student entrepreneurs. So the assumption here is that because you are a student, you are just in your first or second year of your undergraduate, you have some great ideas, but you don't know how to implement them, how to commercialize them. And maybe you don't have that amount of budget that is usually required in order to commercialize those ideas. So these type of students usually can go to incubators and accelerator programs that are affiliated to the university. But then in this research, we were looking across Canada and we were trying to see what is unique. Like, can everyone do this? Like, what is important for those students in order to be successful? So there is something like, there is a concept that we are now focusing on, and that's readily available technologies. So the famous example, I guess we just talked about them in terms of the student would be Udemy, or Coursera or LinkedIn Learning. So, there are some platforms that they are, at least for Concordia students, we know Udemy is free now. So there are some platforms that they are offering some free services and free resources. So it's great as a student, you take advantage of these type of opportunities as well. So you are going to classes, you are taking your usual courses, but this is another resource that is available for you. So, and this can help you in this career. So in terms of the technological resources that we were talking, I was looking at social media. Not anyone will use social media as like a successful company can use it. Like everyone can easily sign up on Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn, so you can create your free account there. But if you are managing a social media account of a company, maybe you cannot be great as another company, So what is unique that you can do it and the other company cannot do it? And is there anything specific that, like, if you don't have this specific item on your CV, that means there is no way that you can achieve that final goal? So no, so that's the whole point. So there are multiple paths in order to achieve the same outcome. So you need to identify your path. You need to find that based on the unique characteristics that you have and the type of resources. It could be technological resources, knowledge resources, anything, but the unique resources that you are using, but still you can achieve to the same final outcome. So I guess the main point here is that don't worry, just you need to find that path. There are so many parallel paths. Like that's in academia, we call it as the idea of equifinality. So you can find that path and then you can achieve it.
Beautiful, thank you. And on the topic of paths, all those paths can be winding. They can intersect and you might jump onto another path that's close by sometimes too, that might be better suited for you as well. So I mean, I finished my master's degree, 4 years ago now. I was a typical Concordia student. I did it part-time. I worked full-time. I hustled really hard for a few years to get that done. And now reaping the benefits of that. I'm sitting at this table and I have access to all of these experts around me and I'm joining in on the conversation. I wish that I could go back to myself like 4 years ago or even earlier, because I was doing my degree part-time, and say, it's coming, just hang in there. It's coming. You're going to sit down one day with these lovely people and have a great discussion about the future of work, and you're going to love your job. You're going to get to do all of the things that you wanted to do. Just hang in there. For millennials, this is kind of the second recession that they're experiencing in 13 years. That's unprecedented, right? The 2008 crisis was like, the worst since the Great Depression. And so we have some young people who, call them young, probably in their early 30s now, who are experiencing two of those almost back to back, right? So for those folks who are not new grads, as you'd mentioned earlier, speaking to folks who are professionals, who are, still grinding out there, you can do it. I want to speak to you guys too.
So I was one of those. I graduated in 2008.
There you go. Mm-hmm.
So I liked Armand's note of "don't worry," because that's the truth of it, right? Don't worry. Like it might take a while. So I'll say, as I said, I graduated in 2008, but I was kind of one of the lucky ones. Or maybe lucky, but maybe had some foresight because I was a co-op student. So I graduated in 2008, but I actually had already been working full time for a few years because of the experience that I had garnered through my co-op experience. I was able to start working. The crash hit. I saw my friends graduate and not find jobs. And they were not always very happy with me because I was doing well, right? But Alice, you mentioned the winding path. Yes, yes, winding path indeed, because who I thought I was going to be at that moment and what I was doing at that time. Though, I started out in HR and quickly veered off of that path into a myriad of other paths. And I'm not that old, I promise. but I'm on like my third career at this point, right? So my message actually, and it's a message I've been saying to students since joining Concordia, is you'll be fine, right? No matter what it is you do right now, what you do in a year, what you do in 3 years, where you end up in 10 years, they might all be very different things, and it's okay, right? We're not in our parents, or maybe, I don't know how young people are now, but maybe your grandparents' generation, where you entered a career and that was your job. That's, you're going to work for X company for the rest of your life. That is not our reality, right? And that's not what employers are looking for either. And so you'll be fine. Don't worry. I know it's tough to hear that sometimes. Because if you're living in it, it's real. Whatever you're living right now, whatever, our students that are about to graduate in November, our November convocation, our students that graduated in June, whatever you're feeling in this moment of stress and uncertainty, I want to validate that. It's real. It's important to say that that time is difficult, but you will be fine, and you'll look back in a year, maybe in a year when we're no longer in a pandemic, and you'll say, wow, I was stressed and look at where I am now. And you have no idea where you're going to end up in the next few years. And that's kind of the joy, I think, of life. I don't know if that's too grand of a statement, but it is, right? It's figuring out where you're heading and what you're doing. And we talked about this before. It's also the same for employers, right? They're figuring out where they're heading and what they're doing. For most employers, I don't know of any employer, we have thousands of employers that we work with, right? And I don't know any of our employers who 2 years ago could have told you what they're doing today and how they're doing their work. Maybe they're doing the exact same work, but how they're doing their work is not the same, right? So you're figuring it out, we're figuring it out, they're figuring it out. We're all going to be just fine as long as we continue to communicate and keep open, keep our openness alive. So all that to say, from somebody who has intimately lived those 2 recessions, you're going to be fine.
Yeah. Meiji, how about you? Do you have a message for new grads?
Yeah, just to echo what Sarah said, you'll be fine. And just for students who are at Concordia, you have access to these great services and really dedicated staff who genuinely care about your well-being, your academic journey with us, and come to us, and we're here to support you, even if it's to listen to you. And I think in this period that we're all going through of difficult, challenging moments, there's someone there to listen to you and to guide you in the right direction, and just to offer you just a small moment of comfort so that we can all get to the other side healthy and safe. So don't lose hope. It takes time, but we will all get through this.
Did you have anything you wanted to add, Isabel?
Well, I love what I hear. What comes to my mind is enjoy the journey, because it's about the journey. The destination, it changes, is obscure. Sometimes it's around the corner, so we can't see it. I also acknowledge that it is scary. It is scary. If we say you'll be fine, it's because we're old and we know, especially me. But I think taking care of this, a good way, I think, to take care of this fear is to believe in yourself, but stay true to yourself, your instinct, your values, what drives you, not necessarily in terms of destination, but in your motion. Those employability skills, I should say they are human skills. Stay open, adaptive, strong, live with stress. It's part of it. Not knowing the future is more and more the situation for everyone, including the older ones. So if we don't enjoy the journey, it's going to be a long ride. And what did I say at the beginning? Je voulais dire la solidarity. No, open mind. Work with authentically with diversity and include everybody. I think together, well, it's a bit cheesy, but together we can go further and feel safer. So I think it would be my last words for today.
Well, we still have a few minutes, and I think that what we can do is maybe just talk a bit about the different programs that we do have. And if we have a call to action that we want to share with some folks who are tuning in, I can kind of start. So through the Experiential Learning Office, I'd say that there are two kind of main ways right now that you can get involved with us. First is through the Beat the Odds internship program. If you'd like to invite a student into your world, this isn't your standard internship. You're going to meet a student who is really looking for guidance. They're really excited to get some experience in their field of study as well. So this is a really great opportunity for you to give back and to mentor a student, get to know the younger generation and that sort of thing, and really connect and develop your leadership skills, develop your leadership style. So if you want to get involved with Beat the Odds, that's one way to connect with me and my office. Another way is through these connected courses that I had mentioned earlier. This is probably the most accessible way that we offer experiential learning to a diverse group of students, because they're getting course credit as well at the same time, right? They don't have to look elsewhere for these opportunities. So if you've got data that you need analyzed, if you've got a problem that you need solved, if you've got something that you want to test out, you want to develop a prototype, you can connect with our faculty members who, through a platform called Ripen, they've posted their courses so that you can get to know what their courses are about. You can also post a project so that our faculty members can take a look at your organization and the challenges that you're facing or the opportunities that you have available. And then in connecting with that faculty member, you'll get to work with our students as well through a course connected project. It is bound by a semestered kind of structure there. But it's a really great way to kind of crowdsource ideas, get in touch with a talent pool that you wouldn't necessarily have access to. When you invite, a student into your world to do an internship, that's one student that you're really getting to know on a close level. But when you connect with a course, you have access to a whole bunch of students with lots of great ideas and excitement that they can bring to your organization. So if you want to get involved in any of those initiatives, and there are others as well, you can get in touch with the Experiential Learning Office. Our email is experiential.learning@concordia.ca. Isabel, do you want to tell us a bit about your programming and what you can offer our audience today?
Well, my invitation for lifelong learning involves all programs at Concordia in all formats, online, hybrid, customized trainings, everything. I'd like to talk a little bit about a little side door that I also lead, and where we've developed capacity to validate competencies and certification, and that would be through the Concordia Continuing Education platform. For now, the lifelong learning platform will come with more obvious presence, but for now we're building, reflecting, discussing. But if anyone would have interest in hearing more about those possibilities, not only in terms of short programs, workshop, longer programs, experiential work integrated learning, we call it. It's experiential learning. Through the Concordia Continuing Education, you'll find what you look, and if you don't, you can just write and ask where is what you're looking for. And that includes the validation of competencies, certification of employability skills to all, and it's an invitation. And the more people who will use it, the better we will get, because we want the feedback, and we're building with people what we're offering.
Oh, that's great. That's
welcome to all.
Yeah, it's a community engaged project. I love it.
Absolutely, absolutely. We need the community to be pertinent.
So the CoOp Institute, we call it the CoOp Institute, but I should say the Institute for Cooperative Education. So we have a number of different kinds of offerings. So I've mentioned before our flagship CoOp option, which is the 3 internship model. We have applications that will be opening mid-December and will be open until mid-January. So if you're an existing Concordia student and you're saying, wait, what is this thing? How come I didn't know about it? You may still have time to apply. So visit our website, concordia.ca/coop. So that's CO-OP, co-op. If you do just COOP, it'll bring you to the French site. So that's fine too. And so that's our flagship option that is opening applications again for the winter. Later on in the winter, so towards March, April, we'll be opening up our applications for our more flexible internship option, which is called C-Edge, also known as Career Edge. This is a 1 internship model, so students can have a lot more flexibility. You know, not everybody's able to commit to 3 internships. It's a big commitment. There are academic requirements for that model. So if you just want to get your toes wet and you want to get a sense of, you know, I think I'm studying the right thing, but I'm not quite sure. And I want to get some experience in a workplace. The C-Edge model might be for you if you're an undergrad student. We also have grad co-op for our graduate students, which is also a 1 internship model. So applications for grad co-op open at the same timeline as the undergrad co-op, so winter, opening December, closing mid-January. And then I mentioned early on that we also have an offering that is kind of an augmented internship experience. So this is for our existing engineering students, female identified engineering students who are already part of either our co-op or C-Edge offerings. So these are actually opportunities we go get from employers who understand the value of having female engineers in their workplaces. So not just of having them there, but what does it mean really to have a female engineer? How do we approach the student in that position, but also how do we change our work because of their presence? And so this is not only the internship itself, but a mentorship program. And it's mentorship in its, I'll say, true sense, in that it's not just the student or the intern learning, but it really is organizations who are open to learning from our students. And so there's a great deal of work that happens together, with the student and the mentor, thinking about how their work continues. And then I'll mention finally our kind of accelerated experience. So it's called ACE, the Accelerated Career Experience offering, which is for students who are the go-getters. I think we all know some of those students who are ready, they start school, but they know exactly what they want to do by the time they graduate. So this is an opportunity to work in an organization for 12 to 16 months. So they'll start typically in a summer semester and then do the full year. So either including this next summer or not, that's the 12 or the 16 month. And that's really, it's in the name, it's a career launch experience. These are opportunities that employers are ready to give students to say, okay, we'll call it an internship, but by the time you graduate, we think we know you're joining us, right? So it allows students to kind of skip that entry level in some ways, right? Because they're entrusted with quite a bit of responsibility, and it's a huge opportunity. So those are my messages for students. Just very briefly, if you are an alumni, if you're an alumnus, I should say, or not a Concordian yet, then come see us, right? Let's think about how we can create these opportunities for our students in whatever way that looks like for you. We'll work with you and create those opportunities. That's it.
Thank you.
Great. So for the students on the call that are John Wilson students or prospective John Wilson students, Career Management Services, also known as CMS, is your one-stop shop for all career services and resources and support needs. So our programming is to help students become as competitive applicants as possible in the job pool, and whether it's for a non-academic internship or full-time employment post-graduation. And it's open to all students in the bachelor's program, undergrad, and master's. So that's MSc and MBA and beyond, and graduate diplomas. The one program I would like to highlight is C-RISE, known as Career Roadmap for International Student Excellence. And this is a program specifically designed for international students who oftentimes don't have a vast or a big professional network to depend on when it comes to their search for employment. And so it's a structured seminar for graduate students and a separate one for undergraduate students, where we have theoretical frameworks to guide them in their job search, and to also have opportunities to practice for that job search and recruitment process. And so we have seminars, we have mock interview sessions with them. We also have networking tips and learning experiences so that they feel confident and understand Canadian workplace expectations, so that they are ready to embark in this Canadian workplace journey as they go along and understand the culture. So again, for all John Wilson students, this is open to you, and for prospective students, you know, who are watching from us from abroad, you know, there's experiences ready and ready to welcome you, so that you can make your journey out here as productive and enriching and rewarding as possible. I think off to Armand.
Armand, did you have any final remarks?
Yeah, maybe the only point is, like, we also in our department, we just revised and relaunched the MSc program. So that's the MSc program in business analytics and technology management. So given the importance of digitalization and digital transformation process during the pandemic, so there are many organizations that are looking at these type of skill sets. So it's not a computer science education, like, just have that in mind. I will provide the link in the chat, so just in case someone is interested to be more familiar with the program.
Great, thank you. And I guess that concludes our panel for the day. Off to you, Anna.
Unmute.
Come on over, Anna. Come over here.
Oh, hello. I'll just awkwardly place myself here in between you. Well, I'm glad to be joining this party you've been having here. No, honestly, we saw in the chat some comments that the session was both informative and inspirational. And I think that that really is true. Thank you to the five of you for everything that you brought to the table today. I think it was really needed and very much appreciated. You did a fantastic job moderating, really.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
congratulations to you all. And I think we really needed to hear this blend of perspectives. So we really appreciate you putting in the work and the time to be here together as a team. Thanks for joining us all the way from Ontario. We appreciate it so much. And on that note, folks, we'll just remind you that we have live streamed this and therefore recorded it on YouTube. And everybody who registered will get a link to that if you want to share it with your friends, family, colleagues, potential students already who are current students. I was going to say already in place. Obviously, it's Friday. I'm losing my words, but on that note, we're going to close up. So thanks again and have a great weekend. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Max.
Thank you.
Thanks, Armand. Thank you, Armand. See you eventually when you're in Montreal.
Yes, sure. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend. Bye.
I always listen at the end of Zoom calls to see what the conversation is.
Well, that was wonderful, really.